like a bird in the sky. The legend of the electric scooter guy. No gas, no fumes, just a hum in the air. A helmet on crooked, like he doesn't care. With a backpack full of snacks and a gleam in his eye. He's the hero we need, the electric scooter guy.
Gear up, Scooter fam. Today we're going to take a look at some footage of my EUC, my most recent EUC ride on the V11Y from Inmotion, and talk about my progress, chat a little bit as I'm going along the ride. This has become my favorite ride. I apologize if you guys see some of this footage kind of redone. Of course, it's new stuff every day, and I try new stuff all the time. So there are different things along the way that change it up. But the route is a pretty familiar route for me, and I really enjoy it. So since I took the one to Chipotle that day, I know there's some grass that I have to deal with and walk through, but it just doesn't matter in the scope of things. Like, I really enjoy that particular ride. There's lots of places for me to just ride and not worry about too much, which it's just a really enjoyable ride. So let's get started. So I'm going to start on the hill. I do pretty well with this these days. I wouldn't say it's still a little like I take it really careful, but I do the same thing on my scooters. It's just a little nerve-wracking heading down this hill towards traffic. It's just a thing that I think deserves a cautious approach. Because then I've got to make this right in this tight little spot right here directly after. So once again, even doing that on my scooter can be a little tricky, and so I don't try to go too fast down that bottom of that hill. For, like I said, more than one reason. And one is because one of the outcomes could be going into cross traffic, so that's never good. But anyway, I've gotten pretty proficient at that. The first few times I tried it, I couldn't really stay on. I was, or once I might have stayed on, but it was really shaky all the way down. And these days I'm fairly, and I had to start at the top, like. One of the times I didn't have that turn in there because it's a little bit of a sharp turn. So I'm making a sharp turn, and then directly I'm heading down the hill, which is easy if you can pull it off. Easier than trying to start at the top of the hill. It's a little more complicated, but you gotta be good enough to make that turn and to continue on. There's just a lot going on when you're first learning. For me, anyway, and so. It just took a little confidence to be able to get to do that, and then then I've got it pretty down at this point, and I don't even worry about it anymore. Taking this trip several times. So today I wanted to do this video. It's going to be I've now been riding a month, like literally right at a month. I've been riding the EUC. Got it 31 days ago. So literally been riding it like every day, 30 minutes a day or more, depending on my ride or whatever. So hopefully more. At this point I'm doing longer rides, but when I was just going to practice every day, I was making sure I was getting in 30 minutes to an hour. Now I may get in a little bit more than that, because I take sort of long, enjoyable rides, 9-mile rides. I'm not sure how long it takes me to get through that. I really don't pay much attention. I'm just having a good time. So, and I'm not rushing. I'm still learning. Even though I'm getting out, it's a month later. I'm not. I'm able to do whatever I want to do at this point. There aren't too many. I think I had to reposition my feet. One of the things that I've really had to do, this is going to be kind of the major topic of this video, is I've had to readjust my stance a bit, so which has been a little bit of a challenge, but I'll lead up to that. So in any case, I've been doing this 31 days. I have now over 100 miles on the V11Y. I did get a hold of Inmotion and ask them why it seemed like it was inflated. And I compared these numbers to the GPS. The GPS said I should have covered about 8 miles, and the Inmotion said I covered about 14. So that was quite a bit different. I know there's little things that can make differences, but it didn't seem like it should have been that much. So I reached out to Inmotion and asked them, and they had me do another quick test, which actually was my first ride on the Inmotion V11Y to Walmart, which is a normal trip for me. One of the most common trips I've taken since I had my Hover One Journey Max, and so it's a trip that I'm just used to. I know everything about the place on the way. There were some places I think I might have mentioned before where there's low-lying trees, and I didn't know if I could duck low enough on the EUC and feel comfortable, but I can, and I did, and with no problems. Seems like I may even can get a little lower than I can on my scooter for some reason. But whatever the case may be, that seems to be the case. And I'm finding there's some things that are just easier to do on the EUC because of smaller form factor. You have only one wheel. You don't have to get the other wheel around on your turns. And with handlebars, like I just installed the 30 something inch. I had 27 inch. I think they're 34 inch or something like that. They're noticeably larger than the stock handlebars on the Klima. I got them for free from Voro Motors, not just to me, but to anyone on the live stream that day, and then anyone who was given the code from the live stream that entire day. So you guys should hit that notification to get when I put videos out, because if I find something like that, I usually make a video like right away and get it out so you guys have that information as soon as possible. That's kind of my style. So if there's something like that, I'm not going to wait and tell you about it a day later when it doesn't make sense. Now, they're still having their giveaway as far as the RS Jet. It's going on all month through August or something like that, I think it says on the video. But in any case, you just want to, like I said, I'll get on. If you guys, you don't have to necessarily watch the videos, but if you see something come out and it seems like maybe there's a time-sensitive issue to it, then you'll know. So, like I said, you get free handlebars and gloves. You just pay shipping, and so I got free handlebars that were $16 to have them shipped, so no big deal at all. I didn't need any gloves, so I didn't order any gloves, but I really wanted to try to put them on the Klima to see how they worked. I got them in today, and I did put them on the Klima, and I've taken a couple rides now on the Klima to test it out, and so that went pretty well. Liking them quite a bit. I also put custom hand grips on there. So, this is, like I said, 100 miles on the V11Y, 1 month, and I've been practicing every single day, at least 30 minutes since I first got the EUC. Now, there was one day I actually skipped. My ankles were pretty beat up. I could have gone out there. My ankles have been beat up plenty of times. But I was getting motorcycle boots the next day. And so I just decided, since I was getting motorcycle boots the next day, I wouldn't put my ankles through any more pain because I could see the light at the end of the tunnel with the new motorcycle boots. And they've been amazing. I mean, we're not even talking about just like falling off the EUC or having to bail or something like that and clipping your ankle. But, sometimes I'm just trying to like move the EUC around. I'm trying to walk it, and I leave the pedals sometimes because I'm going to get right back on it, and I'll clip my ankle that way. I also do that on my scooters. I mean, ankles are a place of injury on these things. But even more so on the EUC, they really line up and they're just easy to bump your ankle. And like I said, I've got a few little gashes and holes. Nothing crazy, because I've seen some pretty bad ones, which is nuts. But for me, just I'm able to get out there and do what I do without having too much, craziness. And like I said, even the little nicks and stuff on my shins aren't a big deal. But I did decide to get some better protection, and there's a few benefits that come with having those boots. One, they do protect your feet more than the shoes, which I had. Even though they're motorcycle shoes, these are better because they go up higher on your ankle and provide a bit more support. And then also for riding EUCs, they're supposed to help with stability because your ankles are kind of locked in and they don't have the flex that they would in some other types of footwear. So they lock in that way, and so there's different levels of things about these boots that are really good. And then of course, simply from protecting your feet from getting nicked. And that just comes into play a lot. I mean, it still happens now with me, but I'm like, man, I'm glad I had the boots on, because that would have been a nice little some skin on the edge of that pedal, so I do enjoy going out and everything, and I want to keep doing what I'm doing. But I did take one day off from the EUC to let my shin and high ankle heal just a bit, which was a good thing. It was a good thing, and I didn't lose too much progress there. So, but I've been on every other day, at least a small ride or something, to try to get out there. But now that I've been doing these, I've been doing longer rides, and with the exception of today, actually. I did go out on the Klima today. I haven't taken any real long rides today at all. But I did go out a little bit on the Klima to test the handlebars out a couple of times. Took a short ride on the EUC. Back over to the parking lot to work on my mounting. And like I said, I'll kind of explain that a little bit. So now that I'm out, I've been riding for 30 days. I spent 18 days. I was just looking at some old posts and some stuff I was making notes on. And on day 18 is when I decided I was done with the parking lot, and I went on my first trip. It's about a 3-mile round trip venture and journey, what have you. And so I went on that trip, and it was such the right thing to do. And I was so nervous, and I was even thinking, like, I don't know if I'm confident enough to do that. There were certain areas in my head that I wasn't sure of. And then I went out and I told myself, if I'm not sure about it, I'm not going to force myself to do it. So any of these things in my head that I'm freaking out about, I'm going to take head on, and I'm gonna do my best. But if I don't feel comfortable, then I'll get off and walk. And so that's what I did a few times. But I realized that I was more comfortable in a lot of situations that I didn't know I would be comfortable in. I'd never been limited to a sidewalk for the most part. I've practiced on lines and things like that, but with real consequences on either side of the sidewalks from time to time. There's one section where there's a ditch, and then very little room on the other side before you run into traffic. So it's a little bit unnerving when you're a new rider trying to balance, and you're still a little shaky, and you tend to veer offline from time to time unintentionally. When you don't have complete control, it can be a little nerve-wracking to get out on situations like this and be able to control it. But at some point you got to do it, and it took me 18 days to do it from when I started. And I spent about 4 days in the grass 3 or 4 days. I want to say the first day I spent, the first day I spent on the grass learning how to get off and get on. That's all I did. Second day, went out and went down a down slope. It took me most of the day to really realize I was doing wrong. If I had spent that whole day doing it the way that I ended up doing towards the end of the day, I would have had much better progress. But I'm learning, kind of on my own here. So by the end of the day, I had it down, but I still needed more practice. So I did it 2 more days. But I could have only done it 1 day. But what I would recommend is doing it 1 day and then go back and just solidifying it the second day, as long as you're doing it the whole time. But just that downhill stretch where I'm trying to balance by shifting my weight and twisting my hips and so forth to make sure that I don't fall and so forth in the grass. This is a great practice technique. And I spent about 3 days doing that. I recommend spending 2. I probably spent 1 more day, but plus, like I said, by the end I was probably more ready than I realized. And that first day, I didn't see a lot of progress until I was almost done with my practice that day. So it did. I had to come back and kind of have it really stick the next day, but it did. But in any case, if you start off right doing that twist, automatically start twisting before you even think about it, then you'll start catching on. Interestingly enough, after I tried that, and that was just my own little kind of instinct when I was trying to figure this out, I'm like, I know I've got to twist. I'm just going to start twisting. And I saw this one video where a guy is kind of showing people how to ride backwards. I'm not there yet. But interestingly enough, he recommended the same thing. So if I ever do decide to start learning how to ride backwards, it totally makes sense because he does the same thing backwards. He starts twisting on his way back to make sure he's staying balanced, and it makes complete sense. And that's definitely the way I will approach it. Of course, he doesn't do it on grass; he does it on concrete. But I never thought maybe I can go to that slope and kind of creep down backwards. Probably a little better now that I kind of have more control. But in any case, he said the same thing. Just start twisting, whether or not you really think or trying to think about it or whatever. And it makes complete sense. That's exactly how I learned how to do that forward on that slope. So that's what I recommend. And then of course I spent 14 days in the parking lot. So it's been 18. So that I spent there, and then now I've been riding around for 2 weeks outside of that. So I spent 2 weeks in a parking lot. I've now been, I believe tomorrow will be 2 weeks out of the parking lot, and 4 days in the grass. So that's my progress to this point. Yeah, I'm going in parking lots, around cars, around people. I'm completely confident. As you can see, my hands are pretty stable on the sides. I don't do a lot with my hands. Sometimes when I'm turning or whatever, but it's very slight. I'm not having to flail them around to keep my balance or anything. Most of the time, I'm trying to control the EUC with my body positioning and so forth, and so I'll sort of touch on that, some of the things that I'm struggling with, and some of the things, and like I said, the reason I spent the day over in the parking lot trying to learn a new mount. And so very early on, when I was in the parking lot learning how to ride, and I was having still having some frustrations mounting and so forth, getting on and getting off, and it just wasn't as smooth as I'd like. And I mean, I was able to do it, but it just wasn't. I needed more control. I didn't have full control, and I really wanted to become more consistent. And so I did watch a video where someone was saying to put your foot as close in, I might have mentioned this, on the pedal on your dominant foot as you can, and then have that leg, which is my right leg, like right up against the edge of the unicycle. And so when you take off again, sometimes I'll just walk across, like especially if I'm going to have to turn here. other than to me just showing off, like I can go across the street on my unicycle, and sometimes I do it just to just to get across, but for practice and so forth, because I'm still kind of learning. But a lot of times, like if I'm just gonna cross, there's no need for me to get on and just jump right back off. I got to come over here and hit this cross button again, and I mean, it just makes sense to walk it across. And then now that I'm over here, of course, it makes sense to go ahead and mount. I'm not going to walk it across there like I did when I first started learning. I was a little nervous about crossing in a crosswalk, but I'm not nervous about that anymore. I have a lot of control. Now I have my mirror on. That gives me a lot of confidence. I can turn my head a lot more. I have much more body control. I can use my hands a little bit more. So that's coming more and more naturally. Just riding more and more without losing my balance. When I glance over or something like that, and the wheel wants to turn or something when I'm not trying to turn. That independence from the balancing, from your gestures and so forth. So I'm able to glance to my left and my right. I still don't try to turn all the way around, which, like I said, is what the mirror kind of helps with, because I want to check my shoulder. I want to check my rear, make sure there's nobody just coming up really fast before I maybe try to get over or something like that, or even cross a sidewalk. Because if I notice a car, it's happened a couple times to me now, I'll be approaching the sidewalk, crossing, and I'll look out my mirror to the left and I'll see a car coming up. Now technically I have the right of way. I could easily just go right through that crosswalk, but it wouldn't be a good idea because these people aren't paying attention. And 2 different times, I made sure that I approached the crosswalk very slowly and let them go before me. I never had to dismount. I still was able to pick my speed back up and go ahead and take the crosswalk once I was sure there were no more cars there. And the whole reason I was sure there were no more cars there is because there was only one car when I glanced over and checked. So I'm always checking before I make a maneuver or before I go across or something like that, because cars love to turn in front of you when you're doing stuff like that. It'll totally be their fault, but I'm just rather avoid it completely if I can. So yeah, that's kind of how I go about it, what I've done. So, going through these little spots right here, this little area back here, I really like. Once I get out on this little street, sometimes there's cars over here, but once again, with my mirror, I can look right behind me and see how close they're getting to me. Make sure that they know I'm there. I will stay. I was going to make a move there, but I was kind of halfway in between, like, should I go, should I not? And, yeah. But, so, see, like this right here, this guy's coming up fast. I could have jetted up there, but I've got so much control now. I just, I know I want to go ahead and let him go. There's no point in me, jumping out in front of him just to hold him up. And so I go ahead and let him go, and then I get back, build my speed back up again. I've got that down so well. That's how I'm able to go, like I said, inside of parking lots. If some car pulls out that, isn't paying attention, I'm paying attention, and I've got it covered. So, I'm just, I got that. Once I get to that point, like I said, I'm pretty good and feel pretty confident going in all kinds of situations. And this is something I really couldn't do in a parking lot. This is something I had to get out and learn how to do riding around. So after 18 days, it was time for me to get out and ride around. Deep down, I knew it, but I don't think I was confident enough. So I had to talk myself into it. And even though I didn't think I had some parts of my riding game down, I couldn't get my speed up to where I really wanted, but I was dealing with things inside the parking lot that aren't cohesive to my learning, and so I needed to get out, and I needed to put myself in some different situations and learn how to deal with those situations and become comfortable dealing with those situations. And I was ready. I just didn't know I was ready. Once again, it's like the grass thing. I mean, I probably spent a tad too long in the parking lot, but by the time I was done, I was sure I could follow a white line all the way across the parking lot and stay on that line. And if I can do that, I can do some things. I'm able to make turns, in the parking lot pretty easily. Now I didn't get confident with them until I really got out and started pulling off some good ones. Like the one I go down that hill. That's a pretty decent one. This one right here, it's kind of goes back the other way. It's a tough little turn to make right here. I probably would maybe have to dismount on my scooter. I don't know if I could pull that off. So, because once again, I got to get that end back around, and without me like making a hard, which is not the simplest thing to do, like on a big scooter, maybe a little scooter, but like the Klima or even the City, maybe the Go, maybe, or but even then, like I said, if it's too sharp like that, like I'm not gonna mess with it on my scooter. But on the V11Y, this is just a straight trip. I didn't stop anywhere. I just went on the trip. Oh, no, I did. It's my mistake. I went to Target. That's right. So there was one trip that I made that I just went all the way through nonstop. But this one I did make a stop at Target, and it was kind of a little errand, but I did it on my normal trip, so I was gonna make the trip anyway. I just needed to stop at Target, so that's what I did. But so yeah, I was ready to leave the parking lot, but it's there were some things that I still that I was confident before I left. Once again, coming to a stop, knowing I could follow a line, even though it's not as easy when you got, once again, real consequences on either side of that line. Not just a huge wide parking lot to make errors on. So if I didn't follow that white line, there was no real consequence other than, whoops, you got off the white line. And so, but I did it, across the entire parking lot. So that, that kind of helped my confidence. But at first, like situations like this, I would get off at the EUC and let them cross before I would jump back on. Of course, now I'm very comfortable with it. Tight spaces aren't that big of a deal for me. Like I said, dealing with pedestrians on sidewalks, bikes on sidewalks, anything. Like I've become pretty confident with that. And like first couple of days, I would get off. If I see someone coming, I would step off and let them pass, and then get back on. That's just confidence. And then you just start riding, and eventually something clicks, and it still hasn't been like a total, here's what happened pretty much. I'll explain is that something clicks, and I kind of stop steering with my waist, and I stop steering with my ankles and my feet, and I just start steering with my body. And so like right here, like I can stand up pretty straight, and when I get here I can make this sharp turn with my hips, and sometimes it's necessary, but then I'm immediately leaning into the turn, and so I'm leaning like this way, off this way, and so that's one of the things that and even in going up that hill. So going down that hill is a little tricky because you got to make that turn and then go downhill. It's also a little tricky uphill because you're going, got to make that hard left. You got to make that hard left at the top, and then you got to get going again. And so the way I do that is I do have to shift, and as soon as I'm done shifting, I'm leaning forward in the direction that I want to turn in. And so that that's become very natural. That becomes very natural, and so when I'm on this long sidewalk that I get up on at the end here, when I get over there, and this is, like I said, one day I was just riding, and then I just started feeling it. I just got into the flow of it. I started realizing, okay, this is how this works. And so, like I said, instead of trying to creep in between spots this big, maybe that's a little small, but in spots that are tighter than normal, and I'm doing it, trying to make sure that I'm keeping it. It's nerve wracking. It's nerve wracking. It's not necessary. So what I'll do is I started just kind of, that's why I started kind of rocking back and forth. So if I'm approaching a spot, a place where I know I'm going to have to possibly stop or slow down and check before I move on, I'm start to rock back and forth, coming to a slower stop. Stop a little bit, go a little bit, stop a little bit, while I'm preparing to get up there to stop, and then once I get up there, if everything's clear, I lean in the direction I want to go. I'm not shifting my weight around, trying to make sure. I'm just leaning in that direction, and my lower body follows, and the EUC follows that. And so I can get in some pretty tight places. Once I'm where I want to be, I just lean in the direction. Now, I personally, I mean, I won't shoot through there just because I'm pretty cautious. Like I said, I want to make sure no one's coming. I want to make sure it's clear. And then once I've established all that and I've got my line, I go. And it's that simple. So that became one day on my way home. From a trip to On-Q, I think that kind of clicked, and I started feeling that, and I'm like, okay, this is how this works, and I was able to just zone out for a while. I was able to just, like, I felt like I was just not even thinking about it. I was just riding. I was no longer having to worry about every little thing. I was just like going, and I've been trying to get back to that. It's not as simple as I thought. I was like thinking, okay, that's it. This is the moment everybody talks about. This, I got a little brave out here, and I went and got out on the street on a 45 mile an hour road because I didn't feel like messing with this grass today. So I said, this is on my most recent ride, and I said, screw it. I'm not going to mess with it. The traffic was pretty clear. I think there's a car coming up on me, but they saw me because I could see him in the other lane. He's about to pass me as soon as I get over. Or you can see him, but yeah, he was in that left lane behind me. There he is. Then he got on over when I got off, but he wasn't that close to me. But I did see him. There was no one close to me. That's why I went out there. But I could see him coming up in my mirror. So once again, getting more comfortable doing everything, jumping out in the street here, obviously once, and everything. But yeah, I had this moment where it clicked, and I was like, okay, that's it. You know, I had the moment. Now every time I go out there, it's just gonna be, you know, and it isn't. And so I'm finding my way back to getting to that point. And you know, certain things have to be in place for me to get there. You know, maybe eventually it'll happen all the time, but for me, like it's got to be a nice pavement sidewalk, pretty wide like this, and I'm able to just not really worry about like the little things. I made it across here before. I decided to walk this one today, but I've done it a couple times, and it kind of depends on how I'm feeling when I get up there. If I'm willing to risk it, I'll get it down. But I'm just, you know, trying little things here at a time. I don't really, like I said, I've said before, I don't like going on grass because there's little dips and slants and things you just can't see that can toss you off pretty quickly. It's not too bad because you're on the grass, but, you know, it's still nobody, you don't want to. You know, going up there looking forward to it. So it still sucks a little bit. And so I've been trying to do that consistently where I'm getting on my wheel and I'm feeling one with the wheel, and then I'm not having to think about every little thing, and I'm just riding, and that's getting easier and easier, but it's just not coming, you know, naturally just every time I get on the wheel. And part of the reason is, you know, I'm learning some things about riding for longer periods of time. And this is a 9-mile trip, you know, this one. And so, and I've made it just one time around straight without stopping at Target or getting something to eat. I just went straight through. Now I had to dismount a few times, obviously here and there, walk through the grass and so forth. But I made a round trip, 9 miles nonstop, on a hot day, in the 90s. And so, all good stuff. Nothing to complain about there. But what I realized was, as I said, when I started riding in the parking lot and I was putting my leg right up against the EUC and putting my foot as close as I could to the inside of the pedal, I was kind of locking my right leg against the EUC. And once I mounted the EUC, it gave me a lot more control. It gave me a lot more control of the EUC. It was easier to mount the EUC because I was able to hold it up better. Okay, because my entire leg was using the contact to keep it up. And so when I was trying to learn early on, that helped me to get over the hump, and kind of get riding consistently. And so now what I'm realizing is I've got to have proper foot position, as well as I've got to have a wide sidewalk, a smooth sidewalk, things kind of being, kind of the perfect conditions and so forth, especially right now, for me to get into that where I'm feeling comfortable, where I'm not thinking about it too much and I'm just riding. For me to get there, I'm having to work on my foot position, because with my legs locked up against the EUC from the foot down, I can't. There's no wiggle room. I'm locked on the EUC. My legs are, and if you can notice now, I'm working on my foot position there. I'm trying to push it out a bit. Problem is, it's messing up my mounts. My mounts aren't clean, and they used to be better. And so I've had some, I can still mount and stuff like that, but I've had some little mismounts, kind of things, or what do you want to call it. And the same thing with this turn up here. I think you'll probably see it. I'm not gonna turn my ankles. I'm not gonna do nothing with my hips. I'm just gonna lean to the right and forward. There's a little bit of a hill, and it's actually so fun to kind of do that and ride it that way. So I'm just leaning. I'm just like looking over, and I'm leaning that way, and I'm dead accurate. It's so interesting. It's just so interesting to figure that out the first time you do. But anyway, for me to maintain that, not get wobbles. I get wobbles all the time. Wobbles is one thing I constantly having to work through. But for me I have moments where, like I said, I'm not worried about wobbles. I'm not worried about turning. Everything's pretty clear. The sidewalk's nice, and I'm just leaning and moving with no issues. And that's like the most enjoyable part of riding to me. And I think I left my chin strap undone here, and I can see it waving, and I realize it, and I can actually fix it. So yeah, I'm getting good. I have to stop and fix it, or stop and do stuff. Sometimes I'm adjusting my mirror if need be while I'm riding. I'm just able to do it more with my hands, and look around a bit more than I did in the past. So I couldn't even barely move my hand without feeling like I was going to fall down. See, I just checked it there, and then I'm going to reach up and fix it at some point. But I guess when I put my helmet back on at Target, I didn't strap it, and I kind of felt like it was a little loose. So right there, I just restrapped it, re-clicked it in, got it all secured. So once again, I'm getting pretty good with that, getting comfortable. But like I said, I'm working real hard on my foot position, and what it's doing is it's messing up my mounting. So because it's just easier to mount when your whole leg is pushed up against the side of the EUC. Maybe especially because it's such a heavy EUC, it's such a big EUC. So me having to do that, and it comes up pretty high on my leg there. It's a decent sized unit, and so I'm on there trying to balance. I'm riding it, really well. I'm very happy with it. I have no complaints about it so far whatsoever. Little stuff here and there, but nothing that makes me not like the wheel or anything. So I think I was saying that I took that ride the other day and checked with Inmotion, and the miles are dead on accurate. That my trip to Walmart was exactly what I thought it should be. And so it's just been a weird thing that happened that day with the GPS being off. But Inmotion miles are correct. The distance is correct. I did a test on the road on a trip that I take on every PEV I've ever owned, and it's exactly right. So I'm not too worried about that anymore. It looks like that was fixed. But yeah, I'm trying to widen my stance out a bit and have more room. I feel like when I have more room to adjust my knee position and keep it in the right position, because sometimes when I mount, if my foot is all the way up against the EUC and I don't get that mount perfectly, it's hard to correct. Or if I'm riding for a while, which sometimes can happen, my knees start to sink a little bit, and I want my knees bent, but I don't want to put that much pressure on my quads the whole time I'm riding. So I want to be in between, and so I have to try to walk my knees back up the EUC in a sense. But I just have an easier time dealing with those types of things when I have a wider stance. When my leg is locked up against the side, it's very difficult to make adjustments like that, because you're almost like glued up against the side. And so to have more control, and I believe I believe if I have the right stance and I have the right posture and knee placement and so forth, that's when I get locked in. That's when I have a better chance to get locked into that zone that I feel like I'm completely in control, just riding without overthinking every little thing I'm doing, and just being able to be one with the EUC, so to speak. So today I went and I practiced mounting only with my foot my foot on a more neutral stance on the EUC, out a little bit away from the side, and because that was my problem. It wasn't as I didn't work on that, right? I worked on doing it with my leg right up against the EUC, and now that I can ride and I'm trying to adjust my foot placement when I mount, it's becoming difficult. I'm not used to it, and so me mounting that way is a bit different, and I'm not able to utilize that lower part of my leg to stabilize the EUC when I'm getting on. So I've got to just work on that, and I did pretty well today. It doesn't take long, but I just needed some repetition. I needed some reps going out there, pushing off, and that's what I did. I just went several times back and forth in the little area of the parking lot that I used to go practice in, and I just go back and forth and stepping on, stepping off, stepping on, stepping off with my foot in that place. Because right now when I'm doing it, as you can see, I can ride for literally miles without having to get off. And so at this point, that's not hard to do. So I'm not having to mount that many times, but when I do, it's more of a struggle for me. I'm not as balanced. It's not as nice. And sometimes I have to step off again. It's just really frustrating. And so I think back there when I was trying to go in Target, I had some tough time getting my mount down. And it's because I'm just not, it was much easier to do that with my complete leg, a lower leg against the EUC when I was mounting. And now when I do it, I don't have that. I've only got, my leverage from my upper part of my knee pushing against the EUC. And so it's just a little bit different feeling, a little bit different thing to get used to. And so I went today and practiced several times back and forth until I feel pretty good about it. And I'm going to, go back out. If I feel like I need to go practice again, I'm going to go back over there and keep practicing that. But I felt like I made some changes today. It wasn't like I'm starting back at scratch or anything. I just felt like I needed to go in an area where I could get some reps in and kind of get those reps now that I want to change up my foot placement and sort of advance my riding skills a bit. Guys, if you enjoyed this content and found it helpful, please like, share, and subscribe, and happy riding.
Woke up slow, wheels still warm, echoes hum where thoughts perform. City yawning, streets all soft, one wheel rolling, tension off. Eyes half lit, sound turned down, tilt to drift, I own this town. No schedule, no grind, no code, just me and the breeze in glide mode. I don't fly, I float, I don't speak, I quote. The street don't judge it, just let's go. One lean and I'm in a flow. I don't spark, I glow. I don't race, I know. Every curve's a gentle code, and I'm tuned in deep. That's glide mode. That's glide mode. Thoughts like vapor, roll and bend. Balance ain't a means, it's the end. No brakes here, just pulse and sway. Riding feels like drifted clay. Clouds don't chase me, they ride too. One soft blink and I slip through. No highs, no lows, just the road I decode. One wheel, one vibe, that's glide mode. I don't fly, I float, no grip, just hold. No maps, just rhythm that I know. Every silence tells me go. I don't crash, I slow. Ain't fast, just bold. Every lean's a secret told, and I let 'em whisper. That's glide mode. That's glide mode. No lights, no smoke, but every turn a line is road. Like, who knew peace had wheels? Who knew calm could feel so real?